being a fresher for other colleges, my interview revolved around academics and GK related questions. But here, since we filled out that CV form, the interview was about me. Interviews are the only time when you get to talk about yourself. So grab this opportunity.
Hello, I'm Nikita Garg from the Media Committee of the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, Delhi. Today we have with us Nikita, and she will be talking about her experience of getting into IIFT. So why don't we start with a quick introduction of yourself?
So I am Nikita. I am from Delhi. I completed my schooling from St. Thomas School, Mandir Marg, post which I completed my BCom honours from Janki Devi Memorial College, Delhi University. I scored 99.13 percentile in CAT and I'm a fresher.
Okay, so Nikita, it's been almost about a year since you gave your CAT. Now you get to be in this beautiful campus. So how have things changed and what was that journey like?
Honestly, most of the things are quite similar because we have a lot of tasks, deadlines, and I'm still motivated to do work. But one thing that is different now is that I have somehow made peace with uncertainty, because all the chaos and anxiety that happens during the admission process, at the end I realized that everything works out for the best and in your favor, like it did in my case. And talking about my experience at IIFT, I think one word that describes about how I feel until my time here is grateful. Although, there's a lot more to go, it just feels like climbing one of the biggest rungs of the ladder. And over time, I have developed core memories at different spots of IIFT, which we have code-named as Tao, Goa, Bhutan, etc. It has started feeling like home away from home.
That's lovely. I'm quite glad that you brought up dealing with uncertainty, because one of the biggest uncertainties any B school aspirant faces is the shortlist period, when you've given your CAT already and now you're waiting for all the shortlists to roll out. What was that like? How did you deal with it, and what was your experience of going through that?
So definitely, I think it's a very, very stressful period because, even after scoring a 99 percentile, you never know how things are going to turn out. Because being a fresher, I knew that there are a lot of people who have better backgrounds than me. So there was a lot of anxiety, and I don't even remember the number of breakdowns I've had at that period. But one thing that I did right was that as soon as CAT was over, I started preparing, and I was very consistent with my preparation. Every single day, at least for 1 hour, I was preparing for my interviews. At the end of the day, I was happy and satisfied. At least I'm doing my part. Let's see what happens next. So I think that is what I suggest all the aspirants as well. And secondly, after a long time, you get a lot of free time. So CAT is like a preparation for CAT itself is very hectic. So I'll say that also start engaging and indulging yourself in things that you always wanted to do. So for me, I wanted to learn music. I wanted to start spending time with my family, which is like a luxury once you enter B school. So start doing those things. It will help you in having a good mental health as well. So that helps.
That's lovely. I'm sure getting in touch with music helped with the interview hobby section as well.
Yeah.
But so IIFT has a slightly different process when it comes to admission than other B schools. So why don't you give like a quick rundown of what that process was?
So after applying, we get an email to apply, like to fill out a CV form. That CV form is like a detailed version of SOP, wherein we have two sections. So in the first section, we need to list down our achievements, our extracurriculars, and all our certifications. And in the second part, we have some questions related to our career aspirations, like long-term and short-term goals. Then we have some situational-based questions wherein we need to apply our creativity. And lastly, since it's a trade college, you can expect a trade-related question. For example, for us, list down any one major geopolitical event and give your own analysis and interpretation of it. Then after that, the process was entirely online. We had an extempore for around 2 minutes, immediately followed by a personal interview of around 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, so this CV form that you just mentioned, that is sort of not that common with every single B school. So how about we go into depth about that, and you could explain what people should mention and what are some pointers to keep in mind while filling out this form?
As I mentioned, that CV form is like a detailed version of your SOP. And I will say that, be very, very serious when you're filling out that form, because 60 to 70% of your interview is driven based out of that form. So don't use ChatGPT is going to be my number one suggestion. Secondly, if I talk about the extracurricular section over there, now you can have 10 different hobbies, but I would say list down the one that makes you very unique. So for me, I listed down the things. So for example, I've taken projects as a voiceover artist. So I mentioned that because I thought that that will make me stand out from other candidates. Secondly, be very specific about things. So if you're mentioning that you love dancing, mention what in dancing. For example, if you are a professionally trained Bharatnatyam dancer, or if you have done Visharad in Kathak, go into specific details. Then for the next session related to career aspirations and answering that one trade related question you get, it's very important to have clarity of thoughts. Try to add your own personal element and try to add stories as much as possible. So that adds a lot of weightage and makes your answers look very unique and authentic.
You mentioned the interviews being very CV form based.
Right.
So how exactly did you go about preparing for the interviews? Like you mentioned, you started from the day one itself after CAT. So what were the steps you took and what helped and what did not help?
So talking about the interview preparation, I think we can divide that into three categories to make it easier. Number one, we have the news. Second, we have your HR answers. And third can be academic, work experience, and your internship related details. Now, within news, you can further divide that into two categories. First, we have news related to your city, your background, as well as your family background. Because for me in my interview, since my father has a business in the pesticide industry, they asked me that what is the percentage of pesticide exports from India. So that is the level of preparation that is required when you are appearing for B school interviews. Secondly, you have to do the domestic and international news, for which you can read Indian Express. That is a good source. And for YouTube channels, I prefer Think School. I think they provide a very comprehensive analysis of news. So that is something you can do. One thing I would advise is that when you're speaking about news, try to give a global perspective to it. What will be the impact of India? Give your own analysis and interpretation. Use facts and figures and try to use technical jargon. So for example, if you're talking about the Red Sea crisis, plain, okay. So
that is another thing.
Yeah, so
in IIFT.
Yeah, in IIFT we're very closer to the airport, so that is also an advantage, but in shoots.
It's lovely to be in the heart of the city. Come on.
It's lovely. So, when you're talking about news, try to give a global perspective to it. Try to add your own analysis and interpretation, as well as use technical jargon. So, for example, if you're talking about the Red Sea crisis, use technical terms like choke points, critical sea lines of communication, etc. So that gives a lot of weightage to your answers and helps set a good impression. Then the second part is your HR answer. So you will be having 10, 15 questions that you need to prepare. For that, I would say that list down all the events that have happened in your life in a sequential manner. No matter how big or small those events are, just try to list it down. And for every question, try to relate that sequence. So try to create stories is something that I would again suggest. And secondly, try to anticipate what cross questioning can be done within those questions. So that helps you be better prepared for any scenario that may occur. And third, are your academic, work experience and internship related details for which you have to prepare in detail. That's how you can prepare for the interview.
Okay, that is quite helpful. However, I think with the jargon part, something that this was an advice I received too. And something that happened was I misinterpreted it. Instead of limiting my jargon just to the news part of the interview, I used it in my undergrad degree discussions. Okay. So I used the term red herring while talking about a scripting related thing. And that did not land well with the interviewers. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. You have to be cautious around
yeah,
speaking. Yeah,
true. So with that, why don't we now move on to your actual extempore and interview part of the process, and also what kind of questions did they ask you and how did you choose to answer them, in what tone?
Okay, so if we talk about the extempore, so the topic that I got was privatization of the public industry. This was something like topic was something related to this as far as I can remember. So around 20 to 25 seconds, you have to collect your thoughts, and after that, you need to speak on that topic for around 1.5 minutes. So in that also, I will suggest that clarity of thoughts is very important. So in those 20 to 25 seconds, try to make a structure of your extempore, that what are the things that you're going to say, so that the panel is also able to understand clearly what you're trying to say. Apart from that, just body language is important, non-verbal communication is important, voice modulation is very important. So that helps. Talking about my interview experience, I think it was very different from other colleges. Now, interview experiences are very subjective. It can be different for every
True.
individual. But being a fresher for other colleges, my interview revolved around academics and GK related questions. But here, since we filled out that CV form, the interview was about me. They wanted to know how I'm thinking creatively at that point and how I am adapting to different situations. So there were a lot of situational based questions, a lot of HR based questions that I felt were there. So at the end of the interview, I was very happy because when I was given this much flexibility, is something that I really enjoy and something that I feel confident in, because those are the answers that you've prepared and you can actually sell yourself in a better manner. So I think that's how it was very different. And yes, since it's a trade related college, have to expect questions related to geopolitics, basic questions related to, what are the major, what is the biggest export from India, top five, commodities that are exported from India. So this is something that, it's a no-brainer and you can expect.
Okay, so we keep hearing the term HR questions when we talk about interview prep. What sort of questions were you asked throughout the different interviews that you've given for B schools? And that.
So, again, HR questions, there are 10, 15 HR questions that you can find anywhere on the internet. Those are very basic that you have to prepare. So, introduction, tell me about yourself. Not in a lot of, if you're very lucky, if you are actually asked, tell me about yourself. A lot of interviews don't typically start with tell me about yourself. My IIFT interview didn't started with tell me about yourself. Then you have, your strength, your weaknesses, very important. With every strength, every weakness should be backed by a solid example. You need to give, a proof that yes, this is your strength or this is your weakness. And weakness, just mention that, okay, you are taking this step to, overcome that weakness. Then you have your long-term, short-term goals. In that you need to have a lot of clarity, definitely. Then I think these are the questions that were asked to me. Why MBA? Then for any particular college, why IIFT? And for IIFT, you have to prepare why international business in specific, because it's a very unique course that nobody offers. So you have to prepare this answer as well.
That and even our business analytics course in of itself is quite unique.
Right.
So
why
while you're applying
business?
for that, you need to be very clear about why analytics.
Definitely. So these are the questions that you can prepare. These are like the basic questions.
Now, most colleges don't have an extempore.
Right.
So what are some tips that you would want people to keep in mind either before or while they are giving the extempore?
So related to the content part, I would say that you have 20 to 25 seconds to collate your thoughts. After that, for 1.5 minutes, you need to speak on that topic. So in that 20 to 25 seconds, try to make a structure of your speech. That what are the different, let's say, how you're going to start with the different elements that you're going to bring in your speech, so that the panel is also able to understand clearly what you're trying to say. And in those 1.5 minutes, I think body language plays a very crucial role. Now, for us, the extempore was online. So I think one major thing is voice modulation. You have to keep your voice modulation intact and alter it when you're trying, when you're saying an interesting point. Don't look down, look in the camera. And I think that just helps. Try to, have a smile on your face, but don't smile too much. just have a smile on your face. That also helps.
Now, IIFT is changing the process a little bit this year. Instead of extempore, they will now have a GD for the candidates. So, what was your, I'm sure you've given GDs, not for IIFT, but for other B schools. What was that experience like, and how did you go about preparing it?
So, in GDs, again, it boils down to how much you have prepared and how much you've read. Because sometimes you get a very situational based topics, but mostly you get, general knowledge based GD topics only. So I think it is important, try to enter first, bring a unique perspective to it, add facts and figures. So for example, if you're discussing about role of women in workplace, include Gallup's data. That helps. So that makes you stand out from the crowd. So that is something that I would suggest. Then again, body language is very important. Even when you are not speaking, look interested when the other person is speaking, because the panel is constantly observing everyone. So I think that will be my suggestion. GDs are usually normal. You don't have to worry about it. Just try to don't interrupt others. Don't make it a fish market GD. That helps.
Yeah, nobody likes fish market GDs at all. Okay, so now something that a lot of people would like to know, I believe, is have you ever experienced mid-interview panic, and how did you overcome that?
Definitely. I think mid-interview panics are real, especially when there's a topic you're not very comfortable with. I think that creates a very intense environment. Something that has worked for me and for my friends is try to add a subtle humor into your answers. So, for example, if they ask you what is the impact of, Trump's election on India, you can start your answer with the one thing that is certain about Trump is his uncertainty. So that is how you can start your answer with. So it will just help cool down an intense environment and also help you divert the topic to something that you're more comfortable with. And apart from that, just try to take a few seconds to think before you answer. And even if you don't know something, it's okay. Don't lose your confidence. So that is something that helped me. But you learn eventually with time. So that is something that happens. Mid-interview panics are definitely real.
Yeah, true. And while we're at the topic, out of all your B school entrance experiences, what was something that went wrong?
That's an interesting question. I would say that you know going with preconceived notions about any particular interview is something that I could have avoided, because every individual is different. They have a different background and the experience may be different for everybody. So when you're going with a lot of preconceived notions that, okay, my interview is going to be heavily revolved around academics or around my work experience or only HR answers, you're not able to answer questions with an open mind. So I feel that if I would have had that flexibility, I would have I performed better in interviews. So I would say that don't go with any preconceived notions when you're entering in that room.
So after the interviews and extempore or GDs are done, we wait for the selected list. Once you get that, how does one? I'm sure you had other shortlists as well.
Right.
So why did you choose IIFT?
So I did convert a couple of colleges like IIM Mumbai, some cap calls and other colleges. But the reason why I chose IIFT over other colleges was that for me, what is being taught is very important. So I compared the curriculum of different colleges and I realized that in addition to the conventional MBA, IIFT was also offering additional international trade related subjects, and that built a lot of curiosity in me. And the option of choosing trade as a specialization, I thought that it was very unique and interesting and I wanted to learn something new. And if we talk about the faculty here at IIFT, it is the best. Some of our professors have actually sat with the central government to formulate policies and stuff. So I was very impressed by the faculty, curriculum, and the legacy that IIFT offers. So it was like a no-brainer, very easy decision for me. I didn't even think once before choosing IIFT.
Okay, so typically a lot of people at IIFT have experienced moving through first converting their second preference. Since we have two campuses, Delhi and Kolkata, people experience converting their second preference first and then getting waitlisted for their first preference, then converting the first preference. So what was that experience like, and is there anything you'd want to say about that?
I think for me, I was very fortunate that I converted in the first list itself and the program that I wanted. That was international business. So I think that you'll be able to provide better insights into how the waitlist procedure goes for our audience.
So I only applied for one course, which was MBA International Business, but I did initially convert in the first list my second preference campus, and it was only after that, and then I had to wait. In the second list was when I converted my preferred campus, and I got here. Okay, so now that everything, the entire process is said and done, and you've chosen IIFT finally, how exactly is the shortlisting and the waitlisting process for IIFT?
So I was very fortunate that I converted my preferred program in the first list itself. But I'll tell you how the procedure was for my batchmates. So you get to choose your preference for campus as well as for the course that you want to go for in future. Now, for example, if you convert your second preference, you're automatically waitlisted for your first preference in campus. So that's how the procedure goes, and then eventually you receive the communication regarding it. So it's a very simple procedure, I'll say, and just hang in there, be patient about it, because a lot of candidates, through multiple waitlist movement, got their preferred course and campus. So that's how the waitlist procedure is.
Okay, so moving on, you've been at IIFT for about 5 months, almost 5 months.
Yeah.
So, what has your experience here been like?
I think one word that describes how I feel about my time until now here is thankful. Even when there's a lot more to go, it just feels like climbing one of the biggest rungs of the ladder. And over time, I have developed really close friendships and great bonds with this campus at different spots, which we have codenamed as Goa, Bhutan, top of the world, etc. So it has started feeling like home away from home, and I'm really excited about how, what the future, how the future unfolds for me here in IIFT. So it has been a beautiful experience.
What are your final thoughts and some tips that you would want people who are IIFT aspirants who will be joining us, some of whom will be joining us in a few months' time, to know during this process?
Interviews are the only time when you get to talk about yourself. So grab this opportunity. And for that, confidence is the foundation for any interview. Now, even if you don't know something, it's okay, because no interviewer is expecting you to know everything, because you're just starting. But the things that you do know, say it with so much confidence that it negates the bad part. So I think that is something that you should, you should be careful of, that be very confident. Then a lot of patience is required. It's a very long procedure. You have to wait. And IIFT is one of the last interviews that you give. So you have to stay motivated, and you don't have to lose your hope and energy by then. And, there's a little bit of luck factor involved as well. So I just hope that your stars align, and I hope to see you in IIFT next year as my junior.
Thank you so much for your insight and your time, Nikita. It was a lovely conversation.